Let's have our guest join us virtually, Fowobi Desmond Fowobi, the president of the Nigerian Nexus, joining the dialogue this morning on the show. Very good morning to you, Petro. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's good to be with you this morning.
Petro Desmond, is it safe for me to call you Ajala the Traveler? Because you seem to be transversing the entire southwest region of the country. Today you are in Lagos, tomorrow you are in Ondo, next tomorrow you are in Ogun State. Where exactly is your base, Petro?
Nigeria is my base, and that is why I'm the president of the Nigerian Nexus. And it is what it is. You have to keep meeting, engaging with people in different communities, and that is what it is.
All right, Petro Desmond, thank you so much for making that clear. Well, let's kick off with the education sector. We hear that the federal government is set to expand the schools feeding program to 50 million pupils with a target set for 2026. Now, this is on one hand, while on the other hand, as schools are resuming, parents are groaning and decrying the hike in school fees, amongst other fees like notebooks, textbooks, school uniforms, transport fees. A lot of things have skyrocketed. How do you react to these scenarios, placed side by side?
Well, you see, the issue of governance from the inception of governance, we've been battling with leadership. We've been battling with Nigeria as a country is still evolving. We are trying different means, different policies, different directives, because we haven't gotten there yet. We have not been able to get there as a country. So we kept exploring different avenues, exploring different tactics just to provide governance. The truth is, for me, why I make that assertion that we are evolving and we are trying is because, for me, I do not see school feeding as the solution to our problem. We're talking about our social welfare package. We're talking about social security that go far beyond feeding children, pupils in the school. That is not to say it is not a good gesture by the Nigerian government. It is indeed a good gesture. But beyond feeding pupils in our schools, it's about trying to understand what works best in terms of the inflation that these pupils and their guardian, their parents will face in sending them to that school. What is the totality of life? What is the quality of life that these people enjoys in their homes, with their parents, with their guardian? If we have the good intention, we seek to provide the best for the children of this country, then we have to look at our social security. We have to improve on our welfareism as a government. We need to improve governance beyond feeding pupils. We need to look at how we can tinker into how parent survives, how family survives. And that would help in bringing a balance. And for us to achieve that, we have to look at our monetary policy. We have to look at our economic system. We have to curb corruption. We have to understand that leadership and governance is beyond providing stomach infrastructure, because I want to tag school feeding into that category of stomach infrastructure. Millions of Nigerian naira, billions of naira will be expended at the end of the day in trying to provide school feeding, which, so to say, is good, but not necessarily. That is not what we need. We need a situation whereby families will be strengthened through policy that strengthens homes, social welfare package, and social security. And that is the point. But because
Petro Desmond, when you say that school feeding programs like this is not necessarily important, how about pupils or students who come from, humble backgrounds, who come from poor homes, who might not even be privileged enough to have the opportunity of having a 3 square meal per day, and maybe the only time that they get to eat a proper meal is via these school feeding programs when they are fed in schools?
Perfect. I understand that concept perfectly. You see, if you trace back historically the history of this school feeding to this contemporary time, this fourth republic, if you think deep a bit, you will realize that the Goodluck Ebele Jonathan's regime or administration had focused more in feeding pupils at the school, and that was because of the widespread hunger that was reported by CNN, CBN, Al Jazeera, and all that about what is going through in the northern Nigeria as a devastated result of the effect of Boko Haram in the northeast. So it is an expansion of the Almajiri kind of a system, whereas the government would take a responsibility of feeding the peoples in the north because of the widespread hunger. That worked in the Almajiri school system, and it was now expanded in the modern, in the contemporary time of this Fourth Republic administration of our successive governments. I understand perfectly that many parents find it difficult to even provide one single meal in a day, in 24 hours, for their children. Not even a proper meal. We are not even talking about proper or improper meal. I'm putting it to you that because of the level of poverty in this part of the world, there are parents, there are families who find it difficult to provide even a meal. So the school feeding system has served the situation for so many of this family. But what I'm saying in essence to buttress this agenda or the intention of government is that beyond thinking about feeding these people in the school, what happens to them in their houses? What is government thinking about beyond school? Beyond feeding them in the school, what happened to their health at home? How do they cope?
Now the school feeding program usually takes place in publicly owned schools, schools owned by either the state government or the federal government. However, let's take a look at privately owned schools, with school owners saying that, and I quote, "We have no other choice but to increase fees." Now, this is as parents are groaning over the hike of school fees in the 2025/2026 academic year. How can there be a regulation to ensure that schools don't just randomly increase fees, to inconvenience parents, and also to ensure that there is a ban on mandatory sale of books by these schools? These are some of the issues that have been raised by parents. Is there a way to address this holistically?
It's about strengthening the quality of education in our public schools. You see, these private-owned schools are the real deal because of the bad condition and bad education system. In the olden days, before now, public schools were the big deal. Public schools were where you find children of the big and the mighty. But as time goes on and our education system, especially the basic education system, gets deteriorated, the private school we now have today, the private-owned school today, savaged the situation. And ever since that time, it has thrived. in a tremendous way. And because of the cost of running any business in Nigeria is increasing by the day due to the policies of the government. And that is where I want us to think about. Policies shape our life. Policies of government determines how the people fare. Policies of government would, at the end of the day, determines if parents will have to pay their child or their children's fees through their nursery, through sweat and blood, or they are going to pay it in a convenient way. It is the policies of the government. It is that same policies of government that addresses these difficulties and this increment in our school fees, especially in the primary schools, in the secondary schools. Don't forget the background. The background is that parents are now looking for good education, sound education, qualitative education. You know the challenges the country has passed through in the past. You know what? You know how we got here. I try to give you the background. I try to let you know that before now, our schools, our public schools, are the real deal. They are the best. They can be compared to any school in the world. But because of the behavior of governance over the years, negligence, lack of accountability, and priority to the welfare of teachers. At some point, Nigerian teachers are the lowest paid teachers in all over the world. That is not acceptable. And that is what we should address. Because I still know that basic education is universal and it is free. Primary education, secondary education in Nigeria is free. Why do parents now go to private school? Why do parents that struggle to survive, we have to struggle to pay school fees? Why should we be talking about private owned schools? And that goes back to the government. And that is why government needs to do more to improve the quality of primary school education and improve the welfare of this system as well as teachers. Once that has been achieved, this school feeding and other incentives given by the federal government to schools and to the pupils will make a lot of sense. And that is what we should address. And that is what this topic should address. Looking at the policies that makes life a little bit better or makes our education, even if we do not want to change the status quo, what does it cost us as a country to improve the quality of basic education in Nigeria?
But you would agree with me, Patriot Desmond, that these privately owned schools have to a very large extent helped out in ensuring that parents who can afford to send their children or their pupils to these schools end up getting quality education. And most of our publicly owned schools, whether basic education, secondary or tertiary institutions, are usually marred by a lot of irregularities. It's either dilapidated buildings or the lack of qualified teachers or even strikes when it comes to tertiary institutions. Now, these are the issues. These are the things that I want you to give viable solutions to. What solutions can you proffer to these issues that stakeholders listening to us right now can adopt in order to make our public education system more, once again, attractive to Nigerians?
First of all, there are things that you cannot lie about. Pictures don't tell lies. Even in the era of AI. I know you can doctor a lot of pictures with AI and all that. But seeing is believing. If you go around our schools, you find out those conditions that you just painted. You find out that there are some schools that their roof is leaking, the environment is so porous, dirty, unsafe, unkept, even the quality of teachers. I am in Okitipupa local government in Ondo State, and I was in some schools as a result of engagement, and I realized that there are schools that individual has to pay school teachers. They call it PTA teachers. You see, yeah, we do not say people should not up. We shouldn't say that people should not support the government. But what we are saying is that there are certain responsibility of government that should not be lagging. And that is provision of quality teachers in our primary and secondary school. I think a lot of people are no longer talking about the quality of our primary schools and our secondary school, because people who are well-to-do, the middle class, if they still exist, they now find succor in these privately owned schools in the right senses. If you go to the UK, you go to, when they want to talk about taxes, they want to talk about certain bills, certain directives of government. It is quick. Some of the spokesmen of this government, it is quick to compare Nigeria with UK, to compare Nigeria with US and some China and all that. But the real question they always negate is the issue of who owns schools overseas. Who is responsible for the quality of education among the children, among the basic school? Even some of our rich politicians, some of our politicians send their children outside the country. The schools they are sending their children to is not privately owned schools. They are public schools with integrity, with quality, with quantity. And that is what we should be looking at. I think more voices need to join this call this morning, that government needs to prioritize. Because the Bible says, when the foundation is destroyed, what can the righteous do? And we're talking about a society that is being eroded by wrong values system. The formation stage of every child, the Bible says, teach a child the way it should go, so when it grows, it will not depart from it. Some of the nationalism, patriotism that we are now pushing, the NOA is pushing, the Ministry of Information Culture is pushing, and some of the ministries of youth is working for. We can better achieve it at the formation stage of every child. Why not improve the bulk of our wealth as a country in the formation stage of our children? The insecurity you talk about today, the lack of productivity, creativity, and innovation that is now a big deal in Nigeria today, can be addressed if we invest the best part of our economy in building the future that we want through investment in qualitative, basic, and universal education for the children.
Now these calls that you're making are not only meant for the federal government, but also for the state governors themselves.
And even local
I mean, the state governors are responsible for ensuring that basic education gets to every single child in any state in the country.
It's not just about getting there. There is no community in Nigeria where you don't find school. There are no communities in Nigeria where you don't find these primary schools or youth or secondary schools. There is no. But the problem is the quality. I just gave you a scenario where someone that I know very well here is paying up to 6 teachers in one school. An individual. As a result of PTA teacher. Does that really make sense? Are we supposed as a country to depend on individuals, to be at the mercies of individuals? Because most of the primary schools you go to in our rural communities, that is the culture, that is the problem. They always complain of under teachers. They have less teachers, whereas they're supposed to have more teachers, because every classroom is supposed to have at least 2 or 3 teachers. We now have a situation whereby we have 1 teacher that mans 2-3 classrooms. Does that really make sense for us as a country? And that is the problem. And that is what that is what the government is not talking about. They tell us that we have primary schools everywhere. They have these billions of naira in universal basic education, UBEC, this and that. But the real question is that go to rural communities. I'm in one of those communities now. You find out that most of the schools you see there, beyond dilapidated structures, here comes lack of teachers. Teachers that will man these classrooms and give our children the best. And
a shortage of teachers is also another issue that we are facing nationwide.
Because they have to take their children to primary schools, to private schools.
Pedro Desmond, are you with me?
Yes, I am.
All right. So you're saying that a shortage of teachers nationwide is also another, endemic bedeviling our school system, especially at the grassroots level.
Yes. Kudos to Ondo State government. Let me use this opportunity to give kudos to Ondo State government. Just a few months ago, because of the worst condition of education and quality of teachers in the last 10-12 years, non-teachers have been employed. But thank God to the governor, the newly elected governor last year, November, that employed about 1,500 teachers. That is to tell you the challenges we're having. Just after about 12 years, and we have had successive governments. Some prioritize building structures without institutionalizing these structures. But here come the governor. And that is the situation in most states. Go to states, go to local government, and find out from them when last do this government employ massive teachers into their public schools. So that's the challenge. So that is what we are talking about. So I just needed to say that, just to point out that it is individuals in our communities that pay teachers. And that was what the government of Ondo State intended to solve when they employed about 1,500 teachers some 2-3 months ago. Just to
all right, Pedro Desmond, let's move on to yet another matter in the news away from education now. The emergency rule in Rivers State that was declared about 6 months ago is set to elapse in a couple of days' time, on Thursday, the 18th day of September. Now, over the weekend, we saw the Rivers State Administrator, retired Vice Admiral Ibas, holding a Thanksgiving service to thank God for guiding him through the 6 months of being at the helm of affairs of Rivers State. Now, this is also coming at a time where demands are being made by the opposition for a probe into his 6-month tenure. How do you react to this situation? The emergency rule, the probe demands, and also the Thanksgiving celebration that was, avoided by both the FCT Minister, Barrister Nyesom Wike, and the suspended Governor, Sasiminalai Fubara.
As a cultured Yoruba man, there is this saying that tí ọmọdé bá dúpẹ́ oore àná, ó rí èmí ọgbà. It's literally translated meaning that if a child give gratitude, thanks for the gifts he received, that will create or pave way for him to receive more. So I want to liken or link that to what is happening with the administrator in Rivers State. 6 months in Rivers State is as good as being a governor for 2 years in some states in Nigeria. The reason is because Rivers State is one of the richest states in the country. And beyond being a richest state, it is a state that have been very, very popular with some negative and some violent conflicts in the past. So for us to have an administrator to have is a tenure of 6 months without any crises, killings, and some other negative connotation deserves that gratitude that was experienced yesterday. But being that as it may, for me, 15th of September will mark World Democracy Day, and it is a day to strengthen the doctrines of governance, inclusive government, and transparency across the world. So I would also expect that the administrator, Admiral, the retired Vice Admiral Ibas, should also include transparent transitioning of power. Like he can call for a media chat or call for executive meeting where he would give a proper account of what he has done in the state in the last 6 months, because I knew and I know for sure he did not run the state on nothing. Billions of naira has been spent. Now, what I expect is that he would call for a stakeholder meeting where he would give detailed accounts of his stewardship to the people, not just to the National Assembly as premised, not just to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, but to the people of River State, and by extension, to the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That is what I expected beyond this show of gratitude and celebration as Thanksgiving.
Well, interesting. How about the demands for a probe into his 6-month tenure? Now, while on one hand, some individuals are of the opinion that the demands are politically motivated, but on the other hand, isn't it important and also pertinent for accountability to be shown to Nigerians in general, and in particular, the people of River State? You had mentioned that the sole administrator should have called for something like a media chart or a media parley to give a detailed account of what he has been able to do with the funds released to him as administrator in the last 6 months. Do you think, or are you of the opinion that these demands for a probe or an investigation into the 6 months are all politically motivated?
Before I speak to that, I think it is not really necessary unless there are allegations of corruption leveled against him. Probe. For me, why do you want to probe him? Was there a report? Was there a kind of a report of his misappropriation, of any misappropriation within the era or time he spent as the administrator of River State? If there are no reports against him, why calling for probe? For me, it is not only political but unnecessary. Yes, it's sane for us to advise that he should give account of his stewardship. In a stronger term, we can use the word probe. But I do not believe that we should be calling him out. For me, it should be celebrated, of course, because for the past 6 months that he assumed the office of the sole administrator in River State, he has been able to do a lot of things in terms of dousing tension. You know, as at the time, let's remember quickly, as at the time this man came, this administrator, Right Admiral Ibas, came on board, you find out that there was tension in the state. He not only calmed the tension, but also was instrumental to the process that is now helping us to achieve the peace in River State. So, first of all, he deserves a kudos before a knock. What I would suggest, and I would join my voice, is that he should willingly or voluntarily give account of his stewardship as the sole administrator, and that will automatically kill any politically motivated probe, as it may appear right now.
Do you think there might have been a reason why the suspended governor, Siminalayi Fubara, and also the former governor and current minister of the FCT, Barrister Nyesom Wike, were not part of that Thanksgiving service? Could it have been some sort of grievance, that necessitated them to stay away from the Thanksgiving service?
I don't think so. Besides, I don't think the governor and the minister of FCT, the suspended governor, Simi Fubara, and Barrister Nyesom Wike, the FCT minister, should necessarily be in that Thanksgiving. The Thanksgiving is for the sole administrator's 6 months administration in the state. It's not totally something that encompasses the past governors or the suspended governor or the minister. So it is just a perfect event that the sole administrator goes to church to do a Thanksgiving. Now, what I think it is necessary right now is to see the smooth transitioning of government of Rivers State from the sole administrator back to the suspended governor, as well as working together with all stakeholders to ensure that the peace that we are seeing today is sustained throughout the tenure of Sim Fubara as governor. That should be our focus.
One of the things that the sole administrator called for is synergy between the suspended governor, who is set to return on the 18th day of September, and of course the state's House of Assembly. Do you see that happening, considering that the rift between them is what caused all of this chaos in the first place that necessitated the state of emergency ruling by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu?
Certainly, the 6 month suspension to Governor Sim Fubara had actually put all that in the box. It has solved so many issues as regarding the issue of conflicts between the executive arms of the government and the legislative arms of government, and some members of the civil, the River State Civil Service. The 6 months was to provide ample time and opportunity for the president and all stakeholders to be able to bring about a workable resolution to bring back peace to River State. And 6 months is not 2 days, it's not 3 days, it's a whole lot. And this said peace has been achieved through the help of Mr. President, His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. He has been able to work out the modalities and peace between the suspended governor, the 27 members of the assembly, and also the godfather, who is the de facto in this conflict. You know, this conflict has actually emanated between the governor and his predecessor, and though he is not part of River State government of today, but it's a de facto, and he has said it on the national television that there has been resolutions, there have been negotiation, and thank God that peace has now been restored. So we are looking forward to seeing a more fruitful government in River State with the second coming of with the return. Let me use the right word. With the return of Governor Sim Fubara in River State. So I expect that the process is going to be smooth. There is going to be mutual understanding and respect for each from the government, whether the legislature, the executives, and the executive arms of the government, and the judiciary arms of the government. So I expect to see a more fruitful working relationship between all the arms of government in River State.
All right, Pedro Desmond, let's put that matter to rest. We have just about 5 minutes to wrap up the discussion on the program. Let's head to Anambra State, where we hear that tensions are rising ahead of the 2025 off-circle gubernatorial polls in Anambra. Now, there are 5 contenders. Of course, the incumbent is set to vie for a re-election, as well as other individuals key individuals in Anambra State. George Mogalu of Labour Party is also vying. Okachiku Nicholas of the APC is there, as well as Ezenwa for Jude of the People's Democratic Party, and lastly, Nwosuchima John of the ADC. These are the 5 major contenders of the gubernatorial polls in Anambra State. Now, let's talk about the security situation there first before we talk about a possible prediction of the winner of the polls.
For me, take this as a prediction, a strong prediction, that because of the political maturity between Governor Soludo and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I do not really see any strong changes in the government of Anambra State, being a highly conservative environment. I expect the return of the governor. And then as the election date draws more closer and nearer, I see that all these tensions, they are necessary. And that tells you the level of participation and the level of readiness of these aspirants. So you expect to see some tensions, but with time, all this tension will down. And I see the return of Professor Soludo as the governor of Anambra State because of certain factor. Now, the factor is one, Anambra State is highly a conservative state. Beyond being a conservative state, it is a government of the APGA, and it is the home base, just like APC. Lagos is to APC, or APC is to Lagos is to APC. So also Anambra is to AP. So I do not expect any changes. The only thing I expect the president to do is to ensure, or the federal government, not the president, the federal government is to ensure that there is level playing ground and all our security architectures deployed to man these elections put in their professional touch. They put in their professional touch. They try as much as possible to be professionals in their dealings and to focus on the security, leaving the politics out. Once that can be assured and established, we're going to have a free, fair, and credible election in Anambra State. And that is just my opinion. But my prediction, once again, is that the governor is going to continue the leadership in Anambra State after the election.
Now, a couple of weeks ago, we saw the governor of Anambra State, who is a full-fledged APGA member, visiting President Bola Ahmed Tinubu at the presidential villa in Abuja here. Now, he was adorning a cap with the president's infinity insignia on it, a statement of solidarity with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and his re-election bid ahead of 2027 general elections. Do you think that in the Gubo polls in Anambra State, that the president will throw his weight behind the incumbent and not the All Progressives Congress candidate in the polls?
I don't want to preempt the president. I do not want to preempt the president. I do not know the discussions. I was not privy to the aftermath of the conversation between the governor and the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But I want to believe that the visits by the governor of the state may not necessarily be political. Don't forget, he's an incumbent. He's an incumbent member of. He's an incumbent governor and a member of the SEC, and so he has the right to visit the president, to update the president on the level of security on the state and growth and development. Having said that, don't forget that the president also had visited Anambra State some months back, even with his entourage, with the son in the company. You know, you can see that Ishiagu, is it Ishiagu they call it? The president in his Ishiagu and he's dancing to the Ishiagu dance. The president danced this will get it up. Whether it's will get it, I don't know.
Or get music.
Okay.
Yes, the president was there to dance with the governor. You know, this governor, this president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is someone that should be studied. His politics is ideal. He's a progressive. He's a core progressive. And then if you understand what progressive is all about, it's all about win-win. The president is all about win-win. Whatever situation that will be a winning situation for the Anambra people and for the Federal Republic of Nigeria is what the president will capitalize on. And don't forget that it is do me, I do you situation. It has happened in Oyo State. It has happened in some states, in different states, where you rub my back and I rub your back. This is the time for the president to rub the back of the governor of Anambra State, so that in 2027, the governor will also rub his back. So this government is a core progressive government, and it is willing and ready. From what I have seen in the past, I don't know what if things have changed. I do not see a strong, significant change in the election that is coming up in Anambra State. All that the governor is expecting from the president is to allow a level playing ground by ensuring that the security architecture controlled by the federal government apply what we call professionalism in the discharge of their duties while doing the conduct of these elections.
All right, Patriot Desmond, a fine place to leave the discussion and draw the curtains on the dialogue this morning. We must thank you so much. It's been wonderful having this engaging discuss with you.
The pleasure is all mine. And you can see the sun behind me. And that is why this state is called the Sunshine State.
Absolutely. And I can see the beautiful greenery behind you as well.
Yes, this is Okitikupa, where you have the palm plantation, the highest in Africa, in Nigeria.
Please enjoy yourself and have a very wonderful day.
The pleasure is all mine.
Well, that has been Patriot Desmond Fowobi, the president of the Nigerian Nexus, speaking to us on matters of national concern, from the education sector to Rivers State and the emergency rule in there, and of course, preparations ahead of the Anambra 2025 gubernatorial polls.